You're listening to the 20% Podcast, powered by the 20% Collective, a community of trailblazing women financial advisors redefining what it means to build a firm on your terms. No fluff, no ego. Just bold conversations, fresh perspectives, and real-world strategies to help you lead, grow, and own your success. This is the 20% Podcast.
Hi, I'm Cathy Curtis, founder of Curtis Financial Planning and co-founder of the 20% Collective. On today's episode of the 20% Podcast, I'm joined by Cristina Guglielmetti, a Brooklyn-based, fee-only financial planner who runs a deliberately lean solo practice. After starting her career in investment management, launching and closing an early firm, and then learning how to build a sustainable planning business inside a small fee-only firm, Cristina relaunched in 2015 as Future Perfect Planning and has been building it her way ever since. In this conversation, we focus on how Cristina runs her firm day to day. She walks through why she starts every client with a one-time comprehensive plan, how she prices planning and investment management without burning herself out, and how she manages growth while staying solo. We talk about capacity, boundaries, simple portfolios, and the tools she uses to stay efficient and present with clients. We also get into a thoughtful discussion about how the industry talks about bringing more women into financial planning, why that messaging matters, and the risk of undervaluing serious technical work under the banner of soft skills. If you're a solo advisor, new to the industry, or simply trying to build a practice that supports your life without sacrificing professionalism or income, Cristina's insights are sure to resonate. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Cristina Guglielmetti.
So, in your opinion, a woman wanting to get into this industry, do you think the best path is to start with the firm and get some experience before launching?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I tell, my mentees, because I'm involved in some mentorship programs, which I know you are as well. So whenever I'm talking to anyone who's looking to come into the industry, I say, your first job may not be exactly the thing that you want to do, but get your reps, understand what it's like to be in a meeting with a client, learn how to listen, learn how to ask questions, learn how to be the guide. That is going to serve you in good stead, regardless of what you want to do. You may not want to eventually launch your own practice, or maybe you do. I certainly never thought that was not my goal going into the industry. I always thought that I would be an employee. And in fact, I didn't even really think about personal finance as a career until after I left graduate school. I was in finance, but not personal finance. And it was really only like that first job that I realized, this is an actual job that people can do. This is a career, and it's very, very broad. And there's lots of ways. Young people who are looking to come into the industry, they may know exactly what they want to do. That job may or may not materialize right away, but the skills that you learn are always going to be valuable.
Yes, going cold would probably be a very difficult thing to do, although it's easier now with XYPN and platforms like that. Definitely.
Yeah, so I was very lucky because right at the time that I was making that transition out of being an employee, XY Planning had just launched. So I was one of the first members. I wasn't in the very first cohort, but soon thereafter. And they really did a lot for people who wanted to launch. They provided a ton of support. They put us in touch with we had cohorts. We had people who were in the same, everyone in your group, you were all making the same decisions at the same time around, compliance stuff and, registration and website and all these things. So, we met regularly and you had a community of people that you could talk to. That was really, really valuable. I do want to, I do kind of tell people I don't think it's a good idea to just start with your own firm immediately. You do have to get, let someone else teach you.
Okay. So now you have a very lean and mean firm. You're a fee-only fiduciary, NAPFA, XYPN. And what I find interesting about the way you do your work is you have a fee schedule that still includes flat fee planning and one-time planning, right?
Yeah, actually, I start everyone with a one-time plan.
Tell us about that
That's
and how you
yeah.
charge
So
for it.
right. So I think it's important. Most of my clients, I will say, are new to working with a planner. They don't know exactly what they want necessarily, how it works. They may have some immediate decisions to make around things like home purchase or career change or something. So they kind of want to get those things addressed, or they've just reached a point where life has just gotten too busy and they don't know what they're missing. Things are working fine, but they're like, is there something out there that I'm not doing? Rather than jumping right into, okay, this is what we're going to do with the portfolio and I'm going to take over the management or something. I always want to do the full plan first. So after an initial consultation, I'll prepare a proposal for them based on, what they share, they would like help with, and I'll structure a scope of work that's tailored to that. I mean, it tends to be pretty similar, but if there's specific questions, make sure that that's part of it. I'll charge a flat fee for that. It's
Okay.
it's generally maybe 4 meetings or so over a couple of months.
And how
Uh,
much what's your fee range for that first plan?
it tends to be around $4,000 to $5,000 for that initial plan. It could get lower if things are really simple. It could get a little higher if things are much more complicated. But that's usually where things are falling.
And
We,
and do you get any pushback on that fee?
I mean, sometimes I do. So, and I understand that. Like it's objectively a lot of money. So uh, there are ways to address that. Like we could break up the fee so it's not all due at the same time. We could like have it done in installments if that were. Sometimes clients will say, "Oh, like can we just do this? Like I just want to know what's happening with my portfolio. Can we just do that?" That I tend not to say yes to because it's very difficult to address the portfolio without everything else. What we can
Absolutely.
do, what we can do is separate the cash flow. That I think we can just because I'm a big stickler for understanding cash flow. We could just do that part and then leave the rest of it for later. So we can break it up that way. Um, but I'm careful to not say, oh yes, like we can just do like one thing at a time,
Right.
and because it is quite difficult to give good advice in a vacuum.
After you finish that initial plan,
Mhm.
do you give them the option to move on in that you meet with them a year from then, or do you offer them an ongoing platform, and how do you charge for that then?
Yeah. So the way I present it is okay, like you have your plan. How do you want to implement and maintain your plan? There's basically three options. And I'll go like most involved to least involved. So most involved would be ongoing planning with investment management, where I take over the portfolio and we continue to have planning meetings. I usually like to have 2 check-ins a year with my ongoing clients. Even if things are very quiet, it almost always works out that it's more than two, but I always want to have at least two. Um, so that's the first one. The second one is just the planning. Same thing, just the planning, but they are still handling their own investments. And then the third one is where there's no ongoing commitment on either side. There's no ongoing fee or agreement in place. But they're welcome to always come back if they just want to do another check-in. That of course is going to be subject to my availability and what I've decided my fees are at the time.
Do you charge AUM for any of those services, or is it all
Yeah. So
flat fee?
no. So the first one would be AUM, and the planning is included in the AUM fee. The second one, I would quote them an annual retainer that I tell them is probably going to be. I tell them upfront is probably going to be close to the initial plan fee. It's just on an annual basis. But I'll give them an exact quote when we get to that point. And the third one currently is more of like an hourly thing. Hourly fee is $300, and there's $1,000 minimum for
Okay.
those return engagements.
Okay, let me ask, I want to focus on this a little bit because, of course, this is always a big decision for anybody that's running their own
Huge,
firm. How do you
huge.
charge and how do you do it and keep yourself not working all the time?
Yeah.
Because hourly there's only so many hours in a day, and knowing how to charge for a plan up front is really difficult because you don't really know how complicated it's going to get sometimes, or if the client's going to do what you tell them. Or so, do you
Yeah.
feel like it works for you the way you're doing it just on a business basis alone?
Yes. So I have worked with a coach who I think you know, and she's helped me with that transition from what I would say like phase one to phase two, getting more people into becoming ongoing clients. And yeah, I've increased my AUM quite a bit in the past couple of years. I'm, roughly at 50 million right now, which is still not an enormous amount, of course, for our industry, but it wasn't something I was focusing on before. And now that's really where I think the growth is going to come from. The reason I like to have this split is because I can really lever up or down with that initial planning um, phase and how many clients I'm taking on at any one time. If it seems like, at certain parts of the year, I want to focus more on my ongoing clients, then that's what I do. If, they're all kind of taken care of and I don't need to, you know, uh, do a ton of follow up or anything with them because they've mostly been handled, then I know I've got the capacity for, to take on more initial clients. And then, the hourly, the, you know, third option, if you call it, just really fits in where it can fit in. I'm upfront with clients about that. That it really is just subject to my availability. I try to be pretty um, strict with my schedule, and if I look ahead a week and there are too many meetings stacked up, I'll just take myself off availability, like because everyone's got my Calendly link. But I try not to have more than a certain number of meetings a week.
Tell me another tool that you find very useful in keeping your practice efficient other than Calendly.
So I do use a meeting note taker. So I use Jump, and I've also been experimenting with Hazel, altruist version of it. And I do find that the idea of it is very good because it allows me to, which I'm sure you know too, it allows me to just really focus on the client in a meeting and not worry about me jotting down all the important things because that's all being captured. There is still, I think they still have a little way to go with things like accuracy and, the tools will sometimes, misattribute something I said to the client or the other way around. But overall, I think it is a time saver.
Is there any other way you're using AI in your practice other than the note takers?
Not really. I do some writing. I've got a newsletter. I'm trying to keep the blog up to date, and I'm working with a social media person now, and she's putting together a whole social media strategy for me.
Does the writing, social media, etc., is that the way you get most of your clients?
Not yet because I haven't, I'm really kind of just at the start of doing a lot of promotion or things like that. Honestly, most of my clients come from word of mouth at this point. Um, I have a lot of clients who come to me from the tech companies because, they've got a lot of internal message boards and they're recommending other professionals.
As I'm talking to you, I'm thinking that you are in growth mode.
I wouldn't go so far as to say like I have a specific growth target that I'm going to beat myself up over if I don't, meet. But I'm always trying to understand like how big can this get if I want to stay solo. That's the challenge, right? Is that you can only get so big if you don't want to hire. And
Right.
maybe I'll hire a VA, maybe I'll hire, a paraplanner or something, but I don't think I want a staff. I like having things the way they are. So yeah, once you make that decision, you're probably limiting how much you can grow. My objective is really, how do I get to that growth and keep my sanity and keep, not be working a billion hours a week
Right.
and still be able to, be there for my clients the way they need. Like the writing and the social media, like all of that stuff is great. But if it takes too much time away from, the client work, then obviously that's got to go.
How do you handle investment management?
I also do that on myself. Like I don't have like a tab or anything. I have some model portfolios, but honestly, like there are more exceptions than there are, clients or accounts that would work okay. And my internal models are pretty simple. So most of my clients are accumulators, so it's relatively easy to keep the accounts in balance because there's often new money coming in. So I can just rebalance with the new money. It doesn't take a ton of time. And I do have a couple of retiree clients, and for them, if they're distributing, that also gives me an opportunity to rebalance.
Do you use ETFs?
Yes, I went through my first SEC exam last year because I had just registered with the SEC. Their first comment was, "Wow, like your portfolios are really boring." Thank you. I will take that as a compliment.
I can't believe they said that. That is funny.
Thank you very much.
We had a little bit of a conversation before this about the way the industry is messaging bringing more women in. That it's a great career for women because women have the soft skills, the communication skills, and also that there's, especially of your own firm, there's a lot of flexibility in when you do your work, and so you can have kids and be a planner and all that. And you expressed a little bit of concern about that message. Talk about that a little bit.
I am a little bit worried about it because there's several kind of phenomena like developing in the industry, or at least like in our slice of it. Yes, like we're trying to recruit more women, more underrepresented communities into being a planner. Yes, we are veering away from the quantitative side of it, at least in client communications and client meetings, and focusing more on the values, the life skills. What are your goals? Like, and those kind of things, and maybe not talking quite so much about the numbers. There's the rise of AI that has taken a lot of the quantitative stuff off our plates, but also like maybe off of the client's plates too, or like they can just ask ChatGPT or Claude a lot of questions and they'll get an answer. It may not be a good answer, but they'll get an answer, right? And also that, having access to advice is something that everyone should have, right? We should all have access to advice. It shouldn't be reserved for people who have $1 million portfolio. Taken individually, I agree 1,000% with all of these things. I think you know that. But I do worry that taken together, we are sort of setting the stage for this to become women's work in a way, right? Which ultimately means it's going to be undervalued. It's going to, like, we should just kind of do it for free because we're good at it and everyone deserves it and we should do it and we shouldn't expect to get paid for it. No, to be fair, like I don't think it's something that's going to happen during our working years, but I do worry a little bit about the next generation or the one after that. So I am careful with with the language that I use when I'm talking to, prospective, advisors or like brand new advisors or something. And I don't say, oh, it's great because there's not a lot of math, or it's great because like you're going to be such a good listener and clients are going to love you for that. That's not why. First of all, anyone can develop these skills. Second of all, the math is still very important. It's just happening behind the scenes, but it's still there and we have to know how to do it. So I do want to be a little bit careful about, I can see a path where that's the way we go. And I don't want us to go that way.
Okay. So I agree with you. Our message is going to be how challenging, fulfilling, and lucrative this career is.
I love it.
And it's perfect for women for all of those reasons.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star review. It helps more women advisors discover the strategies and stories we share each week.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, financial, or other professional services.